Networking, huh? Makes you want to groan and grunt because it just seems sometimes like it is so cringe. It's something that we don't necessarily want to do, but it's something which, if we want to move forward, we kind of have to do. It's something which we have to overcome in order to, not be reliant all the time on things like Facebook ads and Google ads and LinkedIn so much. So basically, none of us want to be there, but we know we all need it. That's the reality of networking. We may not feel like we love it, but we do really need to do it. And it's kind of like the gym, really. You think about it, we should be doing the gym or working out or going for a run or doing something like that. We don't want to do it, but once we're there, it's actually not as bad as we think it's going to be. It's actually kind of fun, kind of enjoyable. And after you've been doing it for a while, it gets a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable to do it. In fact, you look forward to it, or in some cases, you get a little bit addicted to it as well. But why do we hate it? Why do we not really feel comfortable with it? Well, sometimes we just feel like we don't know what to say. Simple. We feel like an idiot. We feel awkward. Sometimes we feel fake because we feel like we're saying words that don't mean anything. We might feel shy or introverted. We don't really enjoy the act of talking about ourselves. We feel like it's a waste of time. We don't know anyone. It just feels like labor that we don't have to go through. And you know what? You don't have to turn up to networking. In very few cases where anyone's actually forced to go and do networking. But again, like the gym, we all know it's good for us and we know we should go. But oh man, it's so easy to make excuses not to, isn't it? So, why we need it is because, like nothing else, it really opens up new contacts to us because it puts us in an environment where we don't know everybody. I go to a couple of different networks here in my hometown, Darwin. One of them used to be very much like I describe it as an old man's drinking club. And it was quite interesting because you'd meet lots of people and occasionally new people would come through, but it was pretty much the same crowd every time. So you felt like you were networking with people who it was super easy to network with. But there was nothing new ever coming from it. And there was no one new coming into it. It was just seemed to be going around in circles. And as such, I've not renewed my membership with that organization, but I have with others where I find it more difficult, such as I am a member of Tourism Top End. And I really labor myself with whether I should become a member each year because it costs a bit of money. And I don't really do a lot of business in the tourism field. But when I go to their events, I always meet someone new and it feels awkward and it doesn't feel like fun for me. It actually feels like hard work because networking has the word work in it, right? So it is about work and it helps us to access others' networks. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that shortly and the importance of realizing that the people at the networking function are not the key people and probably not going to be your clients and that you should still go anyway. Now, networking is cheaper than advertising. Yes, it might cost me nearly $400 to join a particular network here in town, but the events don't cost me any money to go to. There's usually food and drinks provided. That's a pretty good deal when you think of it. Like every month you go to an event, you meet new people, you have got opportunity to get in front of more people. That's a pretty good deal. You've also got one event and many people. So rather than having to have 15 coffee meetings during the week, you can have one event where you actually have the equivalent of meeting 15 people all at one time. So you're doing that sort of one to many thing. It's much more time effective. Now, you may choose to follow up with people afterwards, but I'm not going to follow up I will follow up with everyone I met, but I won't necessarily have a follow-up meeting with everyone I met unless there was a specific purpose for that. So one event, many people, yeah, you can do that, but choose to think of it as a filter or a funnel, right? There might be a lot of people you meet, but you'll only really necessarily follow up meeting with like maybe a couple of them who really are the people that either you can benefit or who can benefit you. It also increases your confidence. Every time I go to one of these places I don't really want to go to, where I don't really have a lot of context for being there, but I'm doing it to network, it increases my confidence to talk to people I don't know. Now, most people think that I can hop on a webinar like this and wax lyrical about any topic and teach people in their hundreds. The reality is that I'm actually an introvert. I don't naturally lend myself well to networking situations. That's why I set up my own networking group because then I've got a place to be and a thing to do and always have a context for being there. But like everyone else, once I'm there, I really enjoy it. It's actually a lot easier to do because, you have yourself a purpose when it goes to these. It helps you form relationships. I've built new friendships, built new business relationships, new clients have come out of that. But, be careful when you look at finding clients in networking. That's not what networking is meant for. Networking does have one very valuable thing, and it helps to build trust faster. There's not really a lot of trust exchange when someone sends you a connection request in LinkedIn. Now, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I'm all over it. It's my number one place to be. But the reality is that it's not a place where you're going to build trust relationships straight away. It takes a little bit of time. When you see someone in person, there's something that inspires the empathy in us and the human connection part of us that makes it so much simpler to trust someone, because we can shake their hand or talk to them face to face. We can see body language. All those non-verbal communication cues are in place so that we feel like we're talking to a real person, not just to a bot on a social network, right? And let's face it, when it comes to business, startups, even if you're a student who's looking to get into the business world, you need to do something. And if you're not going to do it on social media, or you feel like you can't do it on LinkedIn, then a networking function is probably the best place for you to do it. Because I don't know about you, but networking groups tend to be super friendly, because there's always a few people in there who make it their business to get around and say hello to as many people as they can and then make introductions. They are the master networkers, and you need to meet those because they are amazing. They will introduce you to anybody that you would want to meet in that group. So that's why we need it. What's your biggest networking struggle? We know there's certain struggles, and if we look at the studies that have been done through the BNI network and through the Key Business Network, it's more specifically located in Queensland, found between them that there's certain things that we struggle with the most. And the first one is that they don't know how to introduce themselves as a professional. 67% of people in those networking events don't know how to introduce themselves as a professional. Now, thankfully, I know I was part of a BNI chapter back many years ago, probably about 7 years ago now. And I left, unfortunately, to another state that doesn't have a BNI. So otherwise, I would still be a member of that. But, I struggle with that too, but they give you a structure to teach you how to do that. And it's like the not knowing how to make small talk and conversation, which 78% of people struggle with that. That's because it's not real. It feels so fake. Small talk is just painful. It's like trying to drag words out of your own head and mouth, and it just feels like ugh. It gives me the ick as well, small talk. But there is ways of making conversation that doesn't require that small talk of weather, football, and I don't know how good someone's dress looks. And the other one is that a lot of people, the majority, 56%, don't know how to make their conversations with other people about business, because it feels a little bit icky. You feel like you're on the sell. You feel like you're selling someone. But one thing I want you to sort of remember is that the person you're speaking to in that networking event is not going to buy your stuff. Or at least it's incredibly unlikely that they will. What they are there to do is to find other people for you. They will know a big network of people, as you do. You know lots of people that may just be looking for that thing that they do. And that's the purpose of a networking event. So the things that you need to be able to do is to know how to introduce yourself, how to have conversations, and how to make it about business. And there's little things that match that. We've got something called the elevator story that I'll cover today that helps you with introducing yourself. We have the idea of the curiosity approach, which is going to help you know how to have conversations. The 3 rings of influence are all about how to make it about business. So let's go through these. The first one being the elevator story. And the elevator story is kind of it's kind of a evolution of the elevator pitch. And if you've ever come across that, the elevator pitch is very much around about this awful way of making it all about sales. Basically, what it involves is, hi, my name is, here's what I do. I'm looking for this. And yeah, you should make an appointment with me now. It's very salesy. It's designed out of the idea that if you were stuck in a lift with I don't know, Steve Jobs, or Brene Brown, or Ariana Huffington, or what's his name, Bill Gates, for 30 seconds, how can you quickly, pitch an idea to them of why they should have a follow-up meeting with you? And this is just painful. Hi, my name is, what I do is, so what I'm actually looking for is clients. And if you'd like to become a client, please join me. It's just awkward and painful. So the Elevator, there's so much no in that. It's just making us all feel really awkward. So what it is, it's too pushy. It's too much me, too much sales, too much of a like trying to get to achieve an agenda. What we need to do is remove all that and make it much more approachable. So the elevator story works a lot better simply because it turns it up on its head and it ties into storytelling. It's something which we as human beings respond really well to. We like to hear stories simply because it reminds us of our own humanity. And all our lives, we've been shared stories from the movies, from fairy tales told to us as kids, and rhymes, and we read books, and there's Harry Potter and Star Wars, and God knows what else out there that helps us to understand that storytelling is an amazing way to convey information. It's also very compelling and convincing, and it goes in this kind of thing. You know how? Well, I help people to, you know what? They really struggle with this, and I work with them to help them do this so they get the result we're looking for. Now, that sounds great. Let's give you an example. Someone will say to you, "Hey, so what do you do?" I'll go, "Well, you know how people really, really struggle to get the money together that they need to be able to grow a business idea from this little seed and all that." And I'm talking about, there might be university students. There might be someone who's in a job right now, but they've got this idea, this seed of an idea. But they what they really struggle with, these people, is the fact that they're in a workforce mentality. They're employees, and what they need to be able to do is kind of move through that. So I work with them to get more confident about their idea, get really specific about it, help them to actually build that idea out into something which is kind of sellable, and that someone can get some investment in there for them to look for investment partners. They're going to pay to develop that idea into a real prototype and a real product. And the ultimate result is to build, these businesses. And you think of like businesses that came from this, like Facebook and Google, were also benefits of this sort of investment culture. So yeah, that's what I really enjoy doing. Now that is far more confident, far more concise, and far more interesting than simply saying, "My name is, this is what I do, this is who I help. Yeah, let's go." It's far more like I feel much more comfortable having that chat because I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the person I help. I'm talking about their struggle and how they overcome that struggle and what the result is. This is essentially like the hero's journey. The hero's journey is the backbone of any adventure movie, any kids movie, Star Wars, any movies, like right down to something even like Eat, Pray, Love, which is very much the hero's journey as well. Someone who is struggling with something, who finds a helper, and a reminder of what they're struggling with and how they then overcome it. So that there's this result at the end, but there's a guide involved in there who helps them overcome that struggle. And that guide is essentially going to be you. So, how do we have conversations then? We know how to introduce ourselves and to explain what it is we do. How do we then have really good value conversations? Because we're walking into these events, or even before we walk into them, saying, "I've got to get leads, I've got to meet 20 people, I've got to be professional, I've got to be charming, I've got to say hi to everyone I know so they don't feel bad, say hi to enough people who I don't know so I actually get to meet some new people." Oh my God, it's exhausting. Let's just simplify all that down to having some decent conversations with people that don't necessarily have to be about yours or their businesses. What we want to do is connect as humans. And I've got a 3-point plan for that: courtesy, questions, and listening. Let's break it down. What I mean by courtesy is you make the first step to make it easy for someone to get past their awkwardness. Because the reality is, whilst you're awkward, they're all awkward as well. And that means that there's this sort of this weirdness that's going on where they won't say something first, you won't say something first, but you're both waiting for someone else to say it. So what you do is make it really easy for someone to get past their awkwardness. You be the introducer. And that might sound like hell to some people, but just remember this, right? Everybody in that room is waiting to meet someone. But there's some people who they will not have the tools that you have. They won't have an elevator story ready. They won't have these 3-point plans ready in their head for how to do that. So you then become the leader. And what happens when you become the leader is that you then hold the room. And people want to meet you. People want to come over to you, especially it's like that first person on the dance floor rule at any party. There's no one on the dance floor. The DJ's trying to get everyone excited, but no one wants to be first on the dance floor. And then that one girl gets on there, starts dancing, and then the rest of the people join, right? So you be the first girl on the dance floor. Just make it easy for someone to get past their awkwardness. Now, I've got people who I work with in my networking organization who have made it really easy for people to meet them by helping me out at the networking function. You know what the easiest way is to meet someone? Be the greeter, because you've got a reason for greeting people. It's not this random thing where you're going, oh, I don't want to think I'm trying to sell them something, even though I kind of am trying to sell them something. You avoid all that awkwardness by simply having a reason for being there, which is inviting people into the event. It's nice, it's easy. You find out a lot about people, you learn a whole lot of names, which means that once your door duties are over, you walk into the rest of the networking function already knowing everybody's face who's come through. It's the greatest hack to networking I think you could ever do. And I really encourage people to do it. Secondly, about questions. And I'm not talking about asking questions like an interrogator. I'm talking about asking questions that you actually have an interest in hearing the answer to, not just so they can shut up long enough for you to be able to put in your pitch and your idea. That's not what it's about. What we want you to do is to ask questions you're genuinely interested to hear the answers to. And that's not about the weather or the football, unless there's a massive weather thing and it's to do with cyclones, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanoes, something like that. But really try and avoid those gap filler questions. We're talking more about, hey, I noticed in the paper this morning there was a bit of a downturn in the economy. What do you reckon, that could lead to? And someone will go, oh, they'll think about it and they'll go, actually, you know what? I do have opinions about that. And you've got an interest in hearing those opinions because you get to know that person just that little bit and you can exchange some opinions and find some common ground. And then you've got something that you can introduce and you say, oh, Peter, come over and meet Charisse here. We were just talking about that article in the newspaper this morning. It was all about the economy, and Charisse was just telling me that they've actually had a chat at work about what that might mean for them. Have you had the same thing going on? And then you're starting a group conversation. It becomes so much more social. Questions that aren't around about little small talky things like the football and the weather and the pothole in the road and that sort of thing. The easy thing, oh yeah, where do you live, where do you work? That becomes a little bit, I don't know, intrusive, a little bit creepy maybe. So maybe go light on that stuff. The final point of the three is to listen. Listen to what they have to say rather than just waiting for them to shut up so you can say your thing. The whole point is for you not to pitch to them at all. You've already done that with your elevator pitch. They know what it is you do because the story is burned in their brain from you telling it so well. And you didn't have to be a master storyteller. Just use that format. You know how this is the people I help. This is how I help them overcome this struggle. And that whole process makes it so easy. You don't have to now pitch yourself. You don't have to sell anything to them. They know. Because remember, they're not your customer, but the people they know could be customers. And the people that they know, the ones that they then know, that's ultimately the rest of town, they could be your customer. So that's how you start that networking process. Now all you have to do is listen to people's stories. Listen to specifically for something in their story that you could take to someone else in that room. Because the greatest compliment you can pay anyone is to introduce them to someone who could use their products or services. And that is a great power to have in networking. It's one of the foundations behind BNI, the whole idea of big givers gain. Givers gain meaning that you give so much, you're going to gain. It's just part of the story. But in order to gain, you have to give. And one of those things you have to give in is shutting up and listening to what the people have to say who you're meeting. But the part that almost everyone forgets when they come to networking, they might be able to get the elevator pitch or the elevator story right, and they might be able to get the conversations right, but they forget this one thing, which is the follow-up. They forget all about what to do after the networking event. And all that really involves you doing is basically having this, again, another 3-point thing, a point of contact, a connection, and an introduction. So what does that look like? The contact is basically you following up the next day with an email, a text, or a phone call. If you have their business card, that's really easy. If you don't have a business card, say, hey, can I connect with you some way? I'd like to be able to, follow up with this afterwards if you like. They might go, oh yeah, sure. And they'll say, here's my email address. Usually they'll give you the email address. But if they do, Send an email the next day. Just make it one of the first things you do in the morning. You send off the emails, the texts, or if you really feel brave and you want to give a phone call. But just remember though, not everyone likes receiving phone calls. Like me, for instance, I hate it. I just hate it. Just kind of wrecking balls into my day. And really, that kind of wrecking ball, drop everything, answer the phone thing is something that I reserve for the people that I work for and mum. That's pretty much it. So I'm not really going to answer a phone call from a number I don't know. So maybe reach out via email or text. Now, if no one ever gets back to you, it's okay. You made your first move. You don't have to badger them into submission. That's not what you're there to do. What you're doing is making that first move and opening the door so they can feel comfortable to come back to you. After you've made that contact, now we're going to connect on LinkedIn. Now, if they're not on LinkedIn, that's fine. Don't go chasing them on Facebook because that could be seen to be a bit too personal. Just do it on LinkedIn. It's where networking occurs. It's where business connections and B2B stuff happens. We expect to connect with people we've met through business on a business platform. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Type a little message. Say, "Great meeting you last night. I really enjoyed the speaker. Don't know if you're available for a coffee this week, but let's catch up." And then they'll come back and say, "Yeah, I've got some free time on Friday. Let's have a chat." And you got a new connection on LinkedIn, and you follow it to your content. And most importantly, you might have got a coffee meeting with them as well, where you can discuss a little bit more about how you can help them and how they can help you, getting access to each other's networks. That's what the key is. And the introduction part is like the bonus points. Introduce them to someone with mutual interests or opportunities. You've met that person, you've got an idea of who they are and what they like and what they want. You can say, "Well, I know that you're a plumber, that you're looking for clients. Can I just introduce my mate Barry? He works at so-and-so builders, and they always need contractors and this kind of stuff. And they've actually been struggling a little bit with their plumbing contractors. Do you want to have a chat? Here's the email address or the phone number. Connect the two of them together, and off you go. You've just paid both Barry, your mate, and the person you met at the networking event last night the best compliment ever, because you're saying that you trust them both enough that you would recommend them to each other. That's powerful stuff. So that introduction doesn't have to be what you do, but a master networker, someone that really, really wants to nail networking, will always do this. They'll make that connection because there's different roles in a networking organization. There's the giver, there's the getter, and there's the master networker. The giver is constantly giving opportunities and all that in the hopes of maybe getting something back, and they usually will. The taker is always going to be the person who's just on the take, getting as many business cards as they can, trying to get as many clients as they can. They're not really offering much value, and they're certainly not introducing people. But the master networker does all three of these. They give, they also take, but they also do the introduction. So they'll do the connections, they'll do that initial contact, and they will introduce you to people that they believe could be of value to you.